The police sirens cut through the quiet afternoon like a warning no one expected. All Darius Coleman had done was change his Wi-Fi password, but within minutes, patrol cars were parked in front of his home, and a nervous neighbor was pointing straight at him. What no one realized yet was that the real criminal wasn't standing in the driveway. The real danger was already inside the neighborhood. Darius Coleman was a quiet man. At 38 years old, he lived a simple life in a calm neighborhood in Crestwood. He worked remotely as a data analyst, rarely left the house during work hours, and preferred peaceful evenings listening to jazz or reading a good book. His lawn was always trimmed, his mailbox freshly painted. His trash bins were never left out too long. Yet despite being the kind of neighbor most communities hope for, Darius had always felt slightly out of place. He didn't attend block parties. He didn't gossip over fences. And for some reason, that seemed to make certain people suspicious. Especially one person, his neighbor across the street, Linda Foster. Linda was the kind of woman who knew everyone's schedule, everyone's visitors, and everyone's business, whether they wanted her to or not. And for reasons even she couldn't fully explain, she had always been uneasy about Darius. Maybe it was because he kept to himself. Maybe it was because she simply didn't understand him. But that Thursday afternoon, her suspicions would turn into something far bigger than she expected. It started with slow internet. Darius had been on a video conference call that morning when his connection began stuttering. Audio lagged. Screens froze. The call eventually dropped. He frowned at his laptop. Not again, he muttered. After the meeting ended, he grabbed his phone and opened his router settings. Normally, only 3 devices appeared: his laptop, his phone, and his smart television. But today there were 4. The extra device had a strange label. Crestwood 101. Darius leaned closer to the screen. That's not mine. Someone had been using his internet. Annoyed, he immediately removed the unknown device and reset his Wi-Fi password. To strengthen the signal, he stepped outside into his driveway, holding his phone up while entering the new credentials. It was a simple, harmless task, but from across the street, it looked very different. Linda Foster stood at her kitchen window with a mug of coffee in her hands. She noticed Darius standing in his driveway, staring intensely at his phone, tapping rapidly. Her eyes narrowed. "He's always doing something strange," she murmured. She had never trusted him. He rarely spoke to anyone, and she had once overheard him talking about encryption during a phone call. To Linda, that sounded suspicious. Her imagination started racing. What if he's hacking something? What if he's spying on people? Without thinking further, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I'd like to report suspicious activity," she told the dispatcher. "What kind of activity, ma'am?" "My neighbor. He's outside doing something with his phone. It doesn't look right." Within minutes, police were on their way, and Darius had no idea. The sirens startled him. He looked up just as a patrol car rolled slowly to a stop in front of his house. 2 officers stepped out. Detective Marcus Navarro and Officer Claire Bennett. Navarro approached first, his expression calm but firm. "Sir," he called out, "we received a report of suspicious activity. Mind telling us what you're doing?" Darius blinked in disbelief. "I'm changing my Wi-Fi password." Navarro raised an eyebrow. "Mind explaining why?" Darius held up his phone. "Because someone I don't know has been using my internet." Before Navarro could respond, a voice interrupted. "He's lying." Everyone turned. Linda Foster stood on her porch, arms folded. "He's always outside messing with his phone," she said loudly. "Watching things." Looking around, Darius stared at her. "Seriously?" Navarro sighed slightly. "Ma'am, do you have evidence he's done anything illegal?" Linda hesitated. "Well, no, but something just feels off." Darius rubbed his forehead. "This is unbelievable." Navarro looked back at him. "Sir, would you mind showing us the router logs? Just to clear things up." Darius didn't like the situation, but he also knew arguing would only make things worse. "Fine," he said. "Come inside." Inside his living room, Darius opened the router settings on his laptop. Navarro leaned forward. There was again. "Crestwood 101. That device yours?" Navarro asked. "No." Officer Bennett frowned. "Can we see what it's been doing?" Darius opened the activity logs. And suddenly, he froze. Navarro noticed immediately. "What is it?" Darius's voice dropped. "Someone's been accessing video streams." Bennett looked confused. "What kind of video streams?" Darius slowly turned the laptop around. My security cameras. Silence filled the room. Navarro's posture stiffened. You're saying someone's watching your house? Darius kept scrolling. But what he saw next made his stomach drop. Not just mine. Several IP addresses appeared in the logs. Different homes. Different camera systems. This person isn't just spying on me, Darius said quietly. They're spying on the neighborhood. Linda, who had followed them inside out of curiosity, suddenly looked pale. That's impossible. Darius clicked one of the logs. A video feed appeared. A dim hallway. A staircase. A living room. Linda gasped. That's my house. Navarro's eyes hardened. How is someone getting access to all these cameras? Darius leaned back in his chair. My guess. He pointed at the screen. Someone nearby created a fake Wi-Fi network. People connect to it thinking it's normal internet. And once they do, their devices get compromised. Officer Bennett nodded grimly. A man-in-the-middle attack. Linda felt her knees weaken. You mean someone has been watching us? Darius looked directly at her. Yes. And for the first time that day, Linda looked truly afraid. Navarro immediately radioed for cybercrime support. Meanwhile, Darius continued tracing the network traffic. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then suddenly he stopped typing. That's strange. Navarro stepped closer. What? The data isn't going to some remote server. Where's it going? Darius slowly zoomed in on the location. Right here in the neighborhood. Linda's eyes widened. You mean someone here is doing this? Darius kept tracing the signal strength. Finally, the address appeared. His face went still. Linda saw the street name and felt her stomach twist. No, she whispered. Darius looked up. That's your house. More specifically, the signal was coming from the upstairs bedroom, where Linda's nephew lived, 22-year-old Brandon Foster. 10 minutes later, Navarro and Bennett stood outside Linda's house. Linda's hands trembled as she opened the door. Brandon, she called upstairs. Can you come down? No answer. Navarro moved toward the staircase. We'll go up. They knocked on the bedroom door. Brandon Foster, Navarro said firmly. Police. Inside, a chair scraped the floor. The door slowly opened. Brandon stood there, pale and nervous. What's going on? Navarro looked past him. A laptop sat on the desk. Several monitors displayed camera feeds. Navarro's voice turned cold. You want to explain that? Brandon froze. Officer Bennett stepped forward. Mind if we take a look at your computer? Brandon swallowed hard. You don't have a warrant. Navarro leaned closer. We can get one. A long silence followed. Then Brandon's shoulders slumped. It started as a joke, he muttered. Linda's heart sank. I just wanted to see if I could get into someone's Wi-Fi. I study cybersecurity. Navarro's eyes narrowed. And the cameras. Brandon looked at the floor. I got curious. Linda's voice cracked. How many people, Brandon? He didn't answer. Navarro stepped forward. Turn around. Handcuffs clicked. Brandon Foster was under arrest. Outside, Darius stood quietly near the sidewalk. Navarro approached him. You were right, the detective said. If you hadn't noticed that device, this could have gone on for months. Darius shrugged slightly. I was just fixing my Wi-Fi. Across the yard, Linda stood silently. Finally, she walked toward him. I owe you an apology, she said softly. Darius looked at her. I jumped to conclusions, she continued. I assumed the worst about you, and I was completely wrong. Darius thought for a moment. Then he simply said, Next time, ask first. Linda nodded slowly. Because she knew he was right. Sometimes the person we suspect the most is completely innocent. And sometimes the real danger is hiding somewhere we never think to look. Assumptions can destroy trust, damage reputations, and distract us from the truth. Before judging someone, take a moment to ask questions and listen carefully to the answers. Because the truth is often far more complicated than we expect. And sometimes, the quiet neighbor fixing his Wi-Fi is the very person who ends up protecting everyone else. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Cold Justice and tell us where you're watching from by dropping your city in the comments.